This is Dr. Elson Haas, and having an interview with Tara West, a hypnotherapist, and does guided imagery work and body work and drums a lot. She loves to drum, so
Hi, Dr. Haas.
eh, she keeps the rhythm going for everybody. Um, so we're going to talk about how this connects with the whole self detox program that we're doing. Tara's going to provide some guided imagery uh, for the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual components. And we're just going to talk a little bit about what hypnotherapy is and how we'll address that in our emotional and mental and selves, particularly. And when we get our emotions and our minds more centered and calm, our physical body feels better. So tell us a little bit what your perception is, Tara, about the importance of kind of purifying, in the sense, our body, mind, spirit, and heart.
Well, that's a really good topic, and much to be said about it, or nothing at all, actually. But if we can stay in the present moment and not be caught up in our patterns, emotional and otherwise, or trauma that creates stress and anxiety, if we can stay present, then we can respond rather than react in life. And it brings us into a place of the presence and balance. So there are a lot of different techniques for that, which meditation, and of course you talk about, the health aspects of eating healthy plant-based foods and getting hydrated and practicing prioritizing sleep and all those good things. The emotional body is a little different, and it's down in our subconscious, and it's a little tricky to access it in our everyday life unless we do a little bit of work and we get introduced to those places and we become familiar with them, so we can recognize them when they're coming up and causing a block. And we're dual beings. We get to make decisions, so we can make good decisions, we can make not so good decisions. So hopefully we learn to make better decisions.
Yeah, I see people every day in practice, and I know when I start to hear their current stories, whether they're in their 20s or 70s, and I hear the what I consider the past trauma and drama that they've had in their lives. They've been hurt, they've been violated, they've been abused, they've abused themselves. It really affects our health. And part of the idea for this is to purify, in a sense, our emotional selves and the state. How can I talk to people all the time about, they have this pattern going on in their head. I said, how can you change that? Can you change that self-talk and just a calming down? So, how do you address that in a session, for example?
Well, hypnotherapy is a state of relaxation. And right now we're using a beta brainwave to just analyze and talk and be in our linear minds. And in hypnotherapy, we drop down into the next lower level of relaxation, which is the alpha. That's sort of a daydream place. And we go between that and theta. And the theta state is where the healing really happens. That's a shamanic state and a dream state. So we go back and forth between those two, just to go to places when we get out, the mind gets out of the way, and we can more easily sense and feel and remember things that are traumatic in our lives. And all those things, all those stories make up who we are, but we're more than that. And so we don't want to keep coming, as you said, from those same patterns over and over. We want to look at them and take the wisdom from them, release the trauma, so that when we are in a challenging situation with a family member or anything in our lives that brings some stress to the surface, we can take a deep breath and remember that we are able to come to a place of the present moment and not from those old places, and then start to make responses instead of reactions to our current situation. So it
Okay.
takes practice. It's helpful to do breath work and meditation and yoga and all those beautiful things. But to really get to some of those stuck places, hypnotherapy is, I found, to be a really good tool to do that.
Yeah, I've always thought of hypnotherapy as kind of remembering certain traumas, whether it's how your dad talked to you or how your mom, was distant or whatever it might be, and how that affected you. And then to kind of visually see them differently, see them in their healed state. And that's when I started doing, in the early 70s, working with Irving Oil and Marty Rossman, to look at guided imagery as a way just to heal whatever it was, whether it was a frozen shoulder or allergies, and you just saw yourself in a different place, but you would drop down 3 times a day, for 10, 15 minutes into a quiet place and use your time visualizing. So you got immediately that takes you out of the story or the emotional pattern, and that I think anyway, that's how I think about it.
Well, it's true. And in hypnotherapy and guided visualization, you can see yourself as whole and healthy and as that light being that we are. But sometimes we need to just, go down and visit those stories to clear them. It's like clearing the air in the room and giving yourself space for the things that you do want so you can get rid of all that chatter. And if it does come up, I used to like push it back and just try to ignore it, which then leads you to being more reactive, and instead to just take it around and gently look at it and say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm going to make it safe for you. Just, let that go and be present. And then you can come right into that moment of whatever challenge it is with, presence and centered and balance.
Part of peace medicine is not to suppress things, not to push them away, not to cover them up with drugs, which is a common thing. And I even do that in my practice. I mean, people, some people can't sleep, some people, have fear or worry or depression. So how do you deal with address like fears, anger, worry, which are kind of common issues that people have?
Well, it depends on what it's stemming from. So you have to look at the root of these things. And then when you discover what it is, then you can engage your emotional body in new ways of responding to things. So instead of, say, your teenager's acting out all the time and just creating what we know to be teenage behavior, very rebellious and not really very thoughtful, sometimes coming from anger, you can engage that teenager in doing things that are more productive to help you and to protect you and to speak your truth and empower you rather than to, really block you and stop you from being in that present moment. So it takes doing some journeying, and when you do that, you find you get used to that and you learn how to return to that place.
So in psychotherapy, you would maybe go back to some of those issues, some of the things your parents or a coworker or a boss said to you that disturbs you, that you kind of keep going and over again. So when you can drop down and get behind that and just kind of look at yourself as part of that, and to me, for 50 years almost, I would tell people, that story is not you. You're above that. You are behind that. That's just a story you're telling yourself. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it was hurt, but we have to somehow be able to move beyond that. And a lot of people who are doing psychotherapy, for example, are kind of addressing that in talk therapy. But again, there's deeper factors there, and sometimes it takes a long time to get there.
Well, with talk therapy, it really helps you to identify the issues, just like Western medicine can diagnose some uh, some illness. But to be able to change that, you have to go a little deeper and really understand the emotions behind it and what happened, and then find a way to shift that. So you can, in your own creative, imaginative way, dissipate those things, make them smaller, make them less of a hold on you. And understanding them gives you the opportunity to make that choice.
Yeah, that sounds cool. So, I mean, what do you see as like the common problems that people have? I mean, I know you work mostly with women and their issues, but you can work with everybody. So, what do you see kind of is in the way commonly for people?
Well, there are often childhood issues because we're like little sponges when we're young, and having children, I learned a lot about that and seeing how they are deeply affected by things that are said or judgments that are made. And so when we are feeling our anxiety and our stress and our fear, it oftentimes comes from the child. So we can revisit that and we can understand it and see ourselves releasing that. And sometimes people just need to find a way to parent themselves or find inner guides that help them do that and create a new story for themselves so they have a chance to come from a fresh place and really empower themselves in different ways.
That's something I just wrote this morning for an article on the whole self detox. Is because most of my detoxes, I'm trying to get people to unhook from sugar and caffeine and alcohol and wheat and dairy and things like that. So the changing habit part, and like losing weight, like you were part of my weight management program that we did. Um, when we're working with those changes, there's emotional connection to all that, and there's mental stories that we have, like we need this, we need that. Um, so that's to me where hypnotherapy can come in and maybe, kind of clear some of those things.
Right. And when we clear those things, then we have a chance to make different choices. And it does take practice. It takes remembering, revisiting, and bringing those things to the front instead of leaving them, as you said before, kind of pushed down. And then we have the chance to create healthy habits. And a habit is something that you do over and over again. And so if you're doing healthy things, your body will respond to that. For example, I started riding my bike, and now every day I just want to ride my bike. I want to get out and exercise and be in nature. And so it's a healthy habit rather than, one that just prohibits you from really taking good care of yourself.
Yeah, I just have to simplify my healthy habit of chocolate chip cookies to my better habits. I have a lot of good habits. I eat lots of vegetables. I exercise, and I do also one of the things that we'll talk about with my friend Robert, who does the Taoist longevity exercises, or qigong type exercise. I do those every day. I never miss a day. And sometimes I take an hour to do them. Sometimes I take 15, 20 minutes. But it really opens up my energy, and I think having a daily practice that kind of drops you into your body and lets you kind of calm down the mental thing. It's a form of meditation, really. And I think that calming is really helpful.
I think most successful people have, habits and they have a schedule of how they do things, and that helps to really shift patterns and take some will. It takes creative imagination, and it takes really being at that point where you're ready and allowing yourself to try something new and be brave and check out a new kind of therapy if you're stuck. And I think hypnotherapy is amazing because you can go anywhere. And I learned a lot from each and every session because we can all relate to each other's traumas and stresses. And some of our stress is just from media, our social media, that a lot of people spend a lot of time on that, and it creates what is supposedly a norm or a correct behavior. And that also gets woven into our subconscious, and then we can be carrying those things as well. So it's a full house cleanse.
So how do we create more peace within and then in our world? Because if we don't have inner peace, then we're not going to experience outer peace. And this world's kind of crazy right now. And if we watch the news a lot, especially if we get into politics, I've been looking at the fight that many of us have. One article I wrote a while back called "Politics, Medicine, and War." It's like how to get beyond that attack and conquer approach that we do in all these systems. And this is going to be probably a wild year in politics here, and in the
Definitely, it's going to be a wild year, but every generation has lots of challenges, and they may be slightly different, but they have the same effects where we get drawn into it and we react from it. And I think really limiting the amount of media that you take in each day is good, but it's also important to just think when you read something, it's like, okay, so what can I do about that? And if there's nothing you feel you can do about that, then let it go. And if there's something you can do, if there's an action you can take, then do that rather than just mulling it over and over and over again and having conversations with friends about how bad it is. And woe is me, it is, it's tough, but we have to be able to be healthy and peaceful beings in order to project that out into the world and have a change made on a greater scale. So
yeah, I've had people ask me how I can stay happy at night and when I get up in the morning. I said, well, number one is I live in denial and I don't watch the news, but part of it. So I'm looking forward. You're gonna be recording some guided visualizations for our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and our spirit. So I'm looking forward to having those and recording those with you. And thank you for being part of the whole self detox program, Tara.
yeah, absolutely. It's a good challenge for me. And, the guided visualization is different than hypnotherapy in that it is more of a script and it's uninterrupted. It's not interactive, whereas hypnotherapy goes into specific personal issues. And so they're different, but guided imagery is really beautiful. And I'm happy to share that with everyone. And I hope it's really a healing experience for everybody.
Well, thank you, Tara West. Blessings.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dr. Haas.